Now, so far we've put in all of these commands on R1, and we need to put in the exact same commands on R3 here. So we can open up R3. We can go to Preferences, Font Size, and set the font size to 18 so that it's easier to see. We can type Enable to get to Privileged Mode, Conf T to get to Global Config, and then go through the same set of commands that we did before. So we could say security passwords. All right. Okay, so I'm putting in the commands one by one. That's the commands for line console 0, and I'll put line VTY. I'm going to skip line auxiliary because we don't really use it, so I'm going to just skip the auxiliary line, and I'll say line VTY 0 space 4 password Cisco, and I'm going to also put in the login command. So now I have basically both routers configured to the same point. Now, the next command that they wanted us to know is the service password encryption command. So I'm going to go back to R1 to talk about it. So for the service password encryption command, what happens is if I type Control C on the keyboard, get back to privileged mode here, regular prompt. If I do a show running -config is the full command here, it'll show us the configuration file. You can see that our enable secret password has been encrypted with MD5 encryption, which is a fairly strong encryption, right? But if I hit the spacebar to go more, and then spacebar again more, the spacebar again more, you'll see that line console 0, the password is in clear text. You can see password, and you can see my password Cisco. And then line auxiliary 0, password Cisco, you can see it clearly, and also the virtual terminal lines, password Cisco. So what you can do is, you could say configure terminal to get to global config mode and type in this command, service password encryption, right? All right. And let's see here, service password, let's see here, and service, it's password dash encryption. So two things. Command had a hyphen, and I put an I instead of a Y here. So I'll do service password encryption, then do Control C, and then do a show running configuration, and you'll see that not only is the enable secret password, which gets us to privilege mode, encrypted, but also, I'm hitting the space bar now, line console 0 is now encrypted with a type 7 encryption on the passwords for the console, the auxiliary, and for the virtual terminal lines are also encrypted. Now, I may need to reverse this before I save my configuration files and exit my session if I want to come back into my session. When we load the configuration files, they need to load in cleanly so that we can connect to our devices and actually connect to them for real. So what I'm going to do is, I've got to remember now, I'm not going to, for one, I am not going to put this service password encryption command on R3. I'll just leave it on R1, and that way I'll just remember to reverse it before I save my session. So the next command that we need to enter in securing our routers, since we've put in some encryption here on the enable secret on these passwords, and we've put a password minimum length. We're supposed to do 10 characters, but we did 5. We're going to do conft and put a banner message of the day. So why is a banner message of the day part of securing the router? Well, it's a warning to intruders, almost like a legal statement saying, hey, you're not allowed to be in here. You're given a warning and you hacked in, and so you were violating, bypassing warning. So anyway, it's essentially going to be used as a warning. So we'll say banner MOTD, all right, and then what we'll do is we'll put in between $signs, we'll say the message, which would be something like this: unauthorized access is strictly forbidden, and then you would finish it off here with a legal statement or whatever, that you'll be prosecuted to the full extent of the law if you try to connect into this router without authorization, etc., etc. Now, the banner message of the day needs to start with something like a $sign, and it could be a pound sign or question mark, and then it needs to end with that same sign. So I put in the same sign, a $sign at the end, and hit enter, and now the banner message of the day is everything between the two $signs. So if I do a Control C, and then let's exit out of the router. Okay, we'll exit out of the router. I'll press return to get started. Notice that here is our message right here: unauthorized access is strictly forbidden. Picked up my quotation mark, but I didn't put one at the beginning, so that's funny. Anyway, I'll put in the password, which is Cisco. Hit enter, and now I'm into the router. I'll type EN, which is short for enable, and I need to put in the password class, and so now I'm into the router again. Now, I'm not going to put a banner message of the day on R3 just to kind of move along fast, but the curriculum recommends that you do the same thing on both R1 and R3. So basically on this router and then on this router. But I'm not going to do that so that we can move along. It's not a deal breaker if it doesn't have a banner message of the day on R3. So what I'm going to do now is talk about the next level of security, conft to get to global config mode, and that is to move beyond just a password to get into the router and go towards usernames and passwords, which is an enhanced form of security to have a username and a password, because then you can set up multiple administrators with different levels of authorization. So for instance, if I go to global config mode, which I did by typing conft or configure terminal, I could say username, and then I could say user 01, right? And then I could say password, and then put in a question mark, and you'll see that if I follow it with a 0, it'll be an unencrypted password. If I follow it with a 7, it'll be probably a type 7 password, right? Type 7 encryption, right, for password. So what I'll do is I'll put in 0, and then I'll put in the password of Cisco. Okay? So user 01, password 0, Cisco. So now what I should have is I should have a username named 01 and a password Cisco, and I've said to make it in unencrypted. But since we used the service password encryption command earlier, all passwords on the router will be encrypted with a type 7 password, with a type 7 encryption. Let's see if that's the case. So we'll do Control C, and we'll do a show run, and you'll see, if I hit enter, username, user01, password, type 7 encryption, and there's the type 7 encryption. So it basically encrypted our password anyway because of that service password encryption we put in earlier. Let's see if we can find it. It's up here somewhere. There it is, service password encryption. Right in our running configuration file, you can see the command. Notice how it's before everything else so that it encrypts everything coming afterwards. Okay, so that worked out nicely. Let's make a second user. This time we'll do it differently. We'll say username, and this is just following once again the curriculum guideline, the step-by-step guide. Username, say user 02, and then this time we'll say secret, and then we'll also use just the word Cisco, right? So username user02 secret Cisco. We'll hit enter, and now this will be a secret password, which will, I believe, give it the MD5 encryption. Let's test it out. Control C, show run for show running config, and hit, and there it is, username user2 secret MD5 encrypted. And notice the encryption is longer. It also has special characters, capital letters, lowercase letters, and numbers. Much stronger form of encryption. So this would be preferable for your users, your username and passwords, your passwords for your users. So, all right. Now, right now, when we exit out of the router, right, and get back into the router, it only asks us for a password still, right? So we could just type in Cisco, and it doesn't ask us for a username, right? Well, if we want to if we want to activate the ability to log in with a username and a password, then what we need to do is, once again, I'm going to global config mode. We have to go into line console 0, and instead of using the login command, we're going to use the login local command. And by doing that, it's going to tell us that, hey, when we log in, use the local database of username and passwords to log in. So let's give it a try. We'll do Control C, we'll do an exit, and then we'll hit return to get started, and you'll see now it's asking me for a username. So now I could type in user02 and then the password Cisco, and I'm in. I still have to put in the enable password of class to get to privileged user mode.